We'll be back from the break. Business today does continue. Now we look at the monetary policy of August 2022. The Bank of Uganda has released the monetary policy statement as core inflation rate continues to put pressure on the economy, according to the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Uganda, Dr. Michael Atigi Ego. The inflation for 2022 remains in the range of 7.0 to 7.4%. Annual food crop inflation rose from 14.5% in June 2022 to 16.4% in July 2022, and electricity, fuel and utilities, as the inflation now rose from 14.2% to 17.2% in their respective month. Ronan Nahawe and Samuel Kirimunda have more of these details.
The economy is growing slowly due to high inflation, great uncertainty. The inflation outlook is driven by the lagged impact of the higher exchange rate, currency depreciation, dry weather that has resulted in the sharp rise of food crop prices, and a complete pass-through of the global inflationary pressures. These factors significantly cloud the outlook of our economy for this year and beyond. The Deputy Governor of Bank of Uganda, Dr. Michael Atigi, assured the general public that in the near term of 12 months ahead of the Bank of Uganda forecasts, inflation pressures will continue to rise. The current increase in the central bank rate is to bring back inflation to its medium-term objectives of 5%.
Forecasts show that inflation for 2022 remains in the range of 7 to 7.4%. The inflation outlook is driven by the lagged impact of higher exchange rate depreciation, dry weather that has resulted in the sharp rise of food crop prices, and a complete pass-through of global inflationary pressures.
In Uganda, the inflation rate measures a broad rise or fall in prices that consumers pay for a standard basket of goods. The annual inflation rate in Uganda accelerated for the sixth straight month to 7.9% in July of 2022 from 6.8% in the previous month. How about the President's advice on managing our expenses? Could this work?
The prices are signaling to us that something else needs to give way. Don't deplete your resources, your bank account, your reserves, because you want to maintain the same lifestyle. And we are seeing Ugandans trying to struggle to maintain the same appearances and lifestyle. They are still buying new cars, and that's partly what is now pushing up the exchange rate. Because you want to buy a new car, but the price of cars has gone up abroad, so you are going to need more shillings. You are putting more pressure on the dollars. So the dollar would want to save itself and make itself expensive, so that some people would decide and say, maybe let me wait, I'll buy the car later. But the longer you take to adapt to that, the more pain you are going to put on yourself in the future.
The Bank of Uganda raised the lending rate by 250 basis points this year to tame inflation. Ronan Nahabwe, Samuel Chirimunda, Business Today, Smart 24 TV.
Right now, in relation to the cyber crimes in the financial sector, today we take an in-depth in the cyber crimes in the financial sector, closely looking at the banks. How can this be prevented? Or better yet, how can this be eliminated from the financial sector in Uganda? This and more is what we are going to have in our coffee court tonight.
All right, good evening to you all our viewers. Welcome to Coffee Court. My name is Monica Nabyonga and this is Smart 24 TV, where we drive business 24 hours. Today I'm with an interesting person, Mr. Mugera Edward. He's Director IT, Operations and Infrastructure. Please say hello to our viewers.
Hello, good evening. Yes, Edward Mugera is my name. I work with Bank of Uganda, the country's central bank.
Okay. Mr. Mugera, when we talk about financial crime compliance, what a person like me, who is not in the banking sector, not in the financial sector, what do I understand?
Financial crime compliance is really about the controls, the strategies and tactics you put in place, first to detect financial crime, two, to prevent it, and three, to report it. As simple as that.
Now, who puts these standards and who is meant to implement them? The standards, the policies?
The bank, in order to maintain a healthy sector, financial sector, it puts this in place through the various acts enacted by Parliament, through the various regulations that are issued from time to time, and through international best practices. For instance, we, as the financial sector in Uganda, are members of SWIFT. SWIFT is a global payments platform that is owned by members, including financial institutions here, as well, of course, the Bank of Uganda inclusive. Is the owner of SWIFT.
Even our commercial banks?
Even the commercial banks are shareholders. They own the SWIFT network, which facilitates payments across the globe. SWIFT, following the increasing level of crime, and particularly triggered by an incident we had with the Bank of Bangladesh, where over $81 million was lost in a fit of crime, cyber crime. A number of controls were put in place to condone financial crime. I might go a bit technical, but we have, for instance, the SWIFT.
As long as a person out there, as long as actually I can digest it in a layman's language, it's fine.
It's all about controls, okay? Safeguards to your IT infrastructure to ensure that if somebody is logging into your systems, you are able to identify who they are. Of course, you've identified them in the first place. You've given them access. They have a username and password. They have other means. We have other measures through which we can enforce identity to ensure that our systems are safe. It's not just the username and password. We have other tools. Some of them are hardware-based tools. Others are software-based tools to add on to another layer of authentication to our systems, so that if you are interacting with a payment system, you are known, you can be identified that this is Monica who has logged on and no one else.
But is it really possible? Because even here in Uganda, you see that really we are going digital. And
Yes.
by that we're going digital, you see that a lot of, actually the rate has increased of cybercrime.
Yes, cybercrime will increase with the uptake of technology. As more and more people join the financial system through the various channels and avenues, such as mobile money, people now rarely do you find somebody being in a bank more than once in a month or even once in 3 months. Why? Because they have so many other opportunities within which to interact with their bank. They don't have to step in a branch or to go to headquarters. Now, these tools that have made it easy for them to access services, they also come with risks. If you don't take care of your PIN, if you're somebody who just writes it on a paper and pins it on a wall in a public place, people will pick it and they will access your system.
No one does that. No one does that. Even if you keep your PIN secret
it's quite interesting.
You find it still, you can be a victim of
I'll
fraud.
give you an example. There are some staff in some institutions that have written their password and pinned it on the back of their PC. Their password is there. They don't want to forget it, but also they don't know that they're actually revealing it to somebody who will access that PC. Now, how do you keep your passwords? Have you written it somewhere? Is it on your screensaver for anyone to see who has access to your phone? How do you keep it? How do you keep your PIN? Who do you give your PIN? If somebody calls in and says you have won a car and they ask for your PIN, do you give it away? So you realize that when it comes to cyber crime or financial crime for that matter, we as individuals play a very significant role. You as staff of a corporate body, staff of a bank, you as an individual owner of a mobile money account, you are the starting point in condoning what? Financial crime. If you play your role right, these prevalent and increasing levels of cybercrime will drastically drop. Actually, it is said that there is no financial crime that does not involve an individual. It just doesn't wake up and start happening. Someone is involved somewhere.
That individual is the fraudster, right?
And the accomplice. They never work alone. They never work alone.
Mm-hmm.
Someone within the institution could be an accomplice. They are collaborating with these criminals and then to swindle money for whatever reason. You know, sometimes it's for gain, financial gain. In other cases, it could be sabotage, maybe some even for political reasons. In some jurisdictions, we've seen that happening. So there is an individual somewhere involved.
So when did this SWIFT system start in Uganda?
SWIFT has been around for a pretty long time. In Uganda, it started in 2005. That's when we joined the SWIFT network. But globally, it started in around 1970, 73. That's when it started.
When you look at its compliance and adaptation from the public, has it helped really, or it has just circulated, actually exaggerated?
SWIFT is a very secure network. So when it comes to financial crime, they have done well. That platform is solid. And of course, in recent years, additional controls have been put in place. Like I told you about the SWIFT Customer Security Program, which is intended for members of SWIFT they are guided on how to harden, to strengthen their IT systems, on how to teach their people awareness, cybersecurity awareness. You know, within the security program that SWIFT has put in place, it guides its members on how to equip their staff, you know, on how to identify a potential, for instance, malicious email, or there's what we call phishing email, and so on and so forth.
Phishing email is what?
A phishing email, in a simple word, it's a fake email that is supposedly coming to from somebody that you could know. For instance, you know Edward Mugerwa, and all of a sudden you see Edward Mugerwa has sent you an email. But when you look at it closely, you can realize that the name and the email are not from the same person, but they mimic Edward Mugerwa. So if you are not alert, and maybe you click on that link, it will connect you to cyber criminals who will take advantage of you, maybe steal information on your computer, steal maybe your identity, your credentials, and then they can use it for malicious activity or fraudulent activity.
But has there been a sensitization and awareness amongst the public, actually the users of these banks?
I think the sector has done a great job. You will notice that, for instance, let's talk of mobile money providers. They will, for instance, tell you that this is a number you should expect to receive calls from us. Do not share your PIN over the phone. Do not share your PIN on email. That sensitization is there. It's probably that maybe we need to see how to bring it down to the common man, maybe translate into a language they understand other than English, but the effort is there. Yeah.
Okay. When you look at why should these financial institutions comply with financial crime compliance?
One is an obligation. They are expected, for instance, to have in place anti-money laundering practices. They also play a very significant role for the country, you know, because if the sector is not compliant.
But talking of money laundering, really when you look at these central banks, because for them, I think their main aim is making money. For sure, for example, if me as a person, I go there with one aim, I'm a journalist, I'm working somewhere, but maybe I go there with 100 M today, and then just after a few days, still I go back with 200 M. Really, can they follow up to see where I'm getting this income from?
they are expected to fulfill certain obligations. For instance, if you're depositing 100 million, you have to fill certain forms. Those forms, for instance, will ask you what's the source of money. And sometimes you'll be required to even provide extra evidence to prove that, for instance, this money came from a contract that you were contracted to do some work and you are being paid. So they may need for you to supply that
According
evidence.
to the competition they are having, really, can they have that? Can they do it?
They are doing that pretty well.
And go much into investigation to see that really my source of income is real.
They are doing that very well.
Really?
The sector is quite robust when it comes to that.
Okay.
It's an aspect that is called KYC. First of all, they will know who you are. Monica, you have been banking a million shillings per month. How come now you are bringing 100 million in 2 days? So they will say, is this the Monica we know, or this Monica has changed? Then they see you coming with 200. You know, we have also the Financial Intelligence Act. There are obligations under that one as well. They're supposed to report. They are supposed to report to the central bank. It's a regulatory requirement. They don't want to lose their license.
But do you get such cases? As the central bank?
Yes, we do, though I cannot go into the details. Okay. We do get those details from a regulatory perspective, and we do with them administratively.
Okay. You can continue.
Yeah. Yeah, I was telling you about what SWIFT, because the workshop was really about the SWIFT network and we've come up to control and to condone financial crime. I've told you about the customer security program. It is targeting the users and as well as the technology aspect. It is targeting the processes as well. There is also the SWIFT registry, KYC registry. It's similar to what we've just been talking about. Do you know your customer? Do you know the person you are dealing with? It helps with the due diligence at an international level. Now that is also implemented locally. Your bank is supposed to know you. For instance, you should have a national ID attached to your bank account right now. Otherwise, you won't have an account. So that is register. That is know your customer, the KYC program. SWIFT has also come up with what is called the payments control system. The payment control system, basically, they're able to detect the payment as on the wire. Basically, as you transact, as long as you're using the SWIFT network, there are certain payments that will be flagged there and then, and they are stopped.
Is there a specific way that I have to be attached to this network, or as long as I'm a customer in the bank, it's automatic?
Most of it for you as a customer, or as an end user, you will not be bothered with all these details, but your bank will. They have to have what we call a SWIFT code for them to transact. Every bank has a SWIFT code, which identifies them on the SWIFT network, that this is Equity Bank or this is Centenary Bank. They are all identified. Okay. This is Stanbic, this is ABSA. They are all identified by a code, which is called the SWIFT code. So if you're making a payment or receiving a payment, together with your bank account, you're supposed to indicate the SWIFT code so that your money is routed properly. From a user perspective or customer perspective, who is a customer to the bank, usually that's where you stop. But behind that, there are many other controls that have been implemented to ensure that your money is safe.
But you're telling me over ensuring that my money is safe sincerely. But when you look, for sure we have an increasing rate of cybercrime. An increasing rate.
These controls help us to mitigate. It would have been worse if these controls were out of place. It would have been worse. Now, today, first of all, the visibility has changed. You're able to know. A long time ago, you wouldn't know until it is very late. But because of the controls in place, some of these frauds are detected a lot earlier, and then you go into call them initiatives to try and recover this money. We've had, like the case I gave of Bangladesh, it could have been a loss of almost $1 billion, but only 81 was lost. The other one was able to be prevented from going because of the controls.
Okay, still about this workshop, I heard you say that you're moving away from SWIFT to, is it ISO 2022
ISO
something?
222. Okay, now we're not moving away from SWIFT. We are moving away from one SWIFT standard to a new SWIFT standard. These are messaging. It's quite difficult for me to use a language which is non-technical at this point, because messaging is, we've been having what we call the MT, which is basically text, pure text, unstructured text, and to something called ISO 222. 222 is a new SWIFT messaging standard. It is richer, it has got more flexibility, you can put in a lot more information than we are now putting. So the effect of this is that when it comes to clearing your transactions, it will be a little bit faster. Why? Because all the information that is needed for somebody to make a decision that this is authentic is carried in this message, in this new message format.
You're talking about it being faster. Isn't this going to fuel more of the cyber fray?
But we have more controls as well in place. People want instant payments. You know, when you send mobile money, where does it stop anywhere? Do you have less fraud? So what if that also moves into the commercial banks, whereby you go to your bank, you are sending your money to UK. The moment you send, you call, have you received the money? And they say, it has come. Because that's the same thing with mobile money. You send now, it is received now, and not 2 days later or a week later. So with these controls and changes in technology, it will be safer and easier to send, safer and faster to send money across the globe, not just locally.
Okay, your last words to our viewer.
Well, for our viewers, it's just for me to allay any fears you have in place when it comes to the sector. The sector is robust. The sector is secure. We have those controls in place, such as we've just been talking about. All these are intended to ensure that your money is safe and even secure, and that your transactions are protected. Thank you.
All right, you've been such a nice viewer of the Coffee Court tonight. My name is Monica Nabyonga. It's a good night from this side.
It is still celebrations for our neighbors in Kenya, most especially for the supporters of the president-elect William Ruto. However, the president is going to find a debt, a reigning debt that is supposed to work upon, and he has pledged 500 billion Kenyan shillings. Now, this particular money is going to be of huge importance to help and push for one, poverty eradication, that is to help the farmers and entrepreneurs in Kenya. All right, and it's a very huge congratulations to the people of Kenya upon their peaceful, I should say for now, their peaceful election that has now come to an end, their peaceful presidential election. They cast the ballot on Tuesday last week. Now today, the president has been pronounced as William Ruto. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko, and this is Business Today. Well, I will leave you with a quote that is a personal motivation for my personality, is that chase for what you want and make sure that you get it. Because at the end of the day, no one is going to help you when you are down. People want to help those that are already up. So create the opportunities for yourself and make sure you execute everything that is supposed to be executed. And in the long journey, things will be okay for you. I've been coming to you live from Plot 42 Nile Avenue. From the entire production, entire newsroom, at the editorium here at Smart 24, as we continue to drive your business, we wish you a blessed night. It's a goodbye